Hello everyone, this is Hao. This video is about how to use C++ for Unreal game development. This tutorial is adapted from Unreal Engine 4 C++ tutorial by Tommy Chen. The overall goal for this tutorial is to use C++ to create a BP player class, make the player collect coins when touched with coins. First of all, you need to install Visual Studio and follow Unreal's official guide to set up C++ coding environment. After setting up the environment, we can open the starter file from Tommy Chan's tutorial with Unreal Engine, and then create a new C++ class in File type on the top toolbar. Choose Pound and name the class as BasePlayer. Unreal will then open Visual Studio with two files created, baseplayer.h and baseplayer.cpp. Let's get started from here. First, we want to add three components: static mesh, which will allow us to represent the player by selecting the mesh; spring arm, which will operate as a camera for player while playing the game; camera, which will show the display window for player. Open baseplayer.h and add those following code at the top. These three lines will load the necessary files for us to create the three components listed above. Then we need to add those three components or objects in the baseplayer.h file. Now we have the mesh, spring arm, and camera created. The next thing is to make each variable visible to the reflection system in Unreal Engine by adding the UProperty script. Then we need to add visible anywhere and blueprint read-only specifiers into UProperty. Visible anywhere will allow each component to be visible within the editor, and blueprint read-only will allow us to get a reference to the component using blueprint nodes. Okay, now the components are created. The next step is to initialize those components. Open baseplayer.cpp and add the three lines of code inside a base player. This will create mesh, spring arm, and camera components. Next, we want to set the hierarchy for those components by making the mesh as the root component. So far, the components are created. We need to click Build Solution to compile in Visual Studio. After a while, when Visual Studio finished compiling, we need to go back to Unreal Engine and click Compile and Save. Next, we need to choose a mesh for our player and the rotation for spring arm. In this case, setting in Unreal Engine is much easier way to setting than setting in Visual Studio. So we are creating a subclass in Unreal Engine. In Blueprints folder, we create a new base player class and rename it as BP Player. We set SM Sphere as the static mesh for mesh component. Next, we set the spring arm rotation to 0, -50, 0, and arm length to be 1000 with rotation to be absolute rotation. Last, we go to world setting to set default Pound class as BP player. Compile and save. Now we should find a ball with red color in the game. This is our created player, and we will make it move and collect coins later. Next step is to implement movement function for the player. Go back to Visual Studio and open baseplayer.h. Add the two lines of code after component variables. Then add the following function declarations below movement force. Now we need to implement each function. In baseplayer.cpp, add those code. Add the following code inside setup player input component to be blind move up and move right axis mappings, and then add those code into a base player to allow physics force to affect mesh. Compile in Visual Studio. When it's done, go back to Unreal Engine and set Mesh Physics Simulate Physics to be true in BP Player. Compile and save. Now we can play the game using keyword WASD to control the movement of the ball. Now the ball has been created and can move under player's control. We did not use any blueprint settings to create the movement. Next, we will still use C++ to implement overlaps to let the ball collect coins. This time, we will edit basecoin.h and basecoin.cpp to add this feeder. In basecoin.h, add the following code. This will call onOverlap when coin overlaps another actor, in our case, the player. In basecoin.cpp file, add this aBasecoin onOverlap function and /include baseplayer.h script. Add the following code in onOverlap, and then add this line to bind the function's overlap event. Compile in Visual Studio, and then we go back to Unreal Engine, compile, and save again. If we click play now, hooray! The player is collecting coins. Above are the steps to create a base player class and implement player movement and overlap event. Compared to use blueprint developing game, using C++ can make us implement more basic functions and feeders that might be complex or impossible to be implemented by blueprint. Thus, C++ is an essential skill if you desire to be a proficient Unreal developer. However, blueprints sometimes can also be straightforward and convenient to operate. So, the combination of C++ and blueprint can make your game development experience better and stronger. This is the end of the tutorial about how to start developing game with C++. Thanks for Tommy Chan's text tutorial again, and welcome to contact me with any questions.